In this lesson, we'll look specifically at the Shapes window and some of the management things you can do to the Shapes window. Of course, we'll be dealing with the Shapes window quite frequently throughout this course, so it's important to know what to do and how to find your stencils and shapes in this little panel here. Now, the first thing I want to point out is that you can resize the window if you need more or less desktop real estate for the Shapes window, but there is something that is worth pointing out. If you take the mouse and you go in between the Shapes window and the Drawing window, you notice that you get this little double-headed arrow here. But if you click and drag, what you're doing is you're adding a vertical guide to the drawing, and that's not what you want to do. As you can see, this has nothing to do with the actual size of the Shapes panel. So I'm going to undo that with a Control-Z, and instead move the mouse just a little bit to the left of that until it has that little parallel bars in the mouse pointer, and you can click and drag, and you should be able to resize the window, as you can see. So that just gives you a couple of more shapes to pick from if indeed you need a scrolling list to see all of your selected shapes. Sometimes you will, sometimes you won't. I'm going to undo that as well by just clicking and dragging one more time to resize the Shapes window. Now, what else will you see going on? If you want to focus on the drawing specifically and you've put all the shapes into your drawing that you're going to use, what you can do is you can minimize the Shapes window. So that certainly frees up a lot more real estate to focus on your drawing, and you can still get to a wide number of your shapes, and you can still drill down and look through your titles of shapes and switch the shapes that appear here, even though the Shapes panel is minimized. To unminimize it or to restore it, click on that chevron once again, and here comes the Shapes panel. Now, if you want it to go away altogether, then you go up to the View tab. And from the View tab, as you would expect, this is where you manage views in Visio. And what we're looking at here is under the Show Groupings, this Task Panes button. So this shows windows to view shapes and shape data and easily move around within the drawing. So if I click this, you might see the shading behind shapes. That means that the Shapes task pane is currently shown. If I give that a click to toggle it off, now I'm focused just on the drawing pane or window once again. Now you may have noticed that I don't see that chevron to click and restore. I do have to go back here and click that once again to bring back the Shapes window. Now, the other thing worth talking about, of course, is the content of the Shapes window itself. We've got this upper section where you see the titles of the shapes. You've got this lower section where you see the actual shapes themselves. So obviously the rectangle looks like a rectangle, a square looks like a square, and so on. And what you see in this section will depend on what you've selected here in your titles. These are groupings, basic shapes, arrow shapes, decorative shapes, and so on. If I want one of these to go away, I can give it a click and then a right click, and then I just close that section. So now, as you can see, the basic shapes is removed from the Shapes window. If I want to bring that back or navigate to other shapes, I can use More Shapes and then look at my Business Shapes, Brainstorming Shapes, and the group of Legend Shapes or Brainstorming Shapes. If I want to bring back the basic shapes, I go down to General and I put a check next to basic shapes. Notice the other things that are checked right here under the general grouping of shapes, the decorative shapes and the graph and mask styles. There they are right there. So if I go to General and click on basic shapes, then I bring back basic shapes. It's now rearranged from where it was, but I can click and drag this and move it up the list, down the list, wherever I feel like putting that grouping is perfectly fine with me. And as you can see, I'm clicking and dragging decorative shapes. If I wanted to do it with basic shapes, again, I just give it a click and drag. And if I select it, then the shapes themselves or the stencils change in that Shapes window.